So now it's important, we've mentioned phenomenology, right? A phenomena. We've highlighted the split between mind and body. Looking at the journey of science, Freud not being able to talk about the body because he wouldn't be as famous because it was so controversial, and the work of William Reich. There's also the work of Jung in here, which I will send you information on if you're interested. So again, this is more working on dreams, bodies, how we appear. I'd encourage you to look in that direction as well. I'll go into that in some other work. So it's very powerful, the work of Jung, dreams, and it's that non-verbal phenomena, as in no words, that we are noticing, which we have all noticed in our clients and shared in the group, the non-verbal phenomena. So there's one more lady, I say lady and man, that I'm going to share now. Again, in science, there's the diversity line, right? And also they're all white. So I'm naming that as well in terms of science and where it starts to change. So I'm going to now bring in a lady, and this is called Laura Pearls. Laura Pearls is at the bottom there, and her husband's Fritz Pearls. So mostly it was Fritz who was documented, written about, but they actually did the work together. So Fritz Pearls and Laura Pearls are the founders of Gestalt therapy. Okay, and is anyone German? Can speak German? I know this is random, but I do this game. This is just my own thing. If I meet German people, I ask them, what does Gestalt mean? Because it has different. Welcome to my world. So it means different things. It can mean if you please pop it in the chat if you know what it is, maybe without Googling. I know I could Google it, but it's just better to ask a German person or someone who speaks. So if it pops up, Zina, let me know. So it can mean shape or whole. And Fritz Pearls' psychotherapist was William Reich. There you go. There's the lineage. Okay. And Gestalt therapy is a unique expression of Reichian therapy. But remember, politically, professionally, Reich was sort of destroyed and made bad. And the Gestalt therapy is a lot more talked about. So Gestalt therapists focus on non-verbal phenomena. So it's all about that. What are we holding? The eye contact that John mentioned, the not noticing, that irregularity that Stephen mentioned earlier, the non-verbal phenomena, unconscious gestures. Think of unconscious gestures with your students, with your clients, unconscious gestures, facial expressions, movements that are brought to awareness. And in Gestalt therapy, they are exaggerated and given a voice. So the extreme of this would be, and I would usually use the leg, the kicking leg, but I'll bring it into Zoom land here. So, so if you were going to make this to really exaggerate it, and there'd be shouting and wailing and singing and things that we're probably not doing now in 2020 in therapy. And actually, where this happened was at the Esalen Institute. If you've not heard of this place, please look into it. They've got lots of things online. And this is the first place. It's in California. And now remember, we've segued in time and politics here around mind, body. And now we're in California between the mid-50s, 60s, 70s, mid-70s. So you've got free love, war, drugs, lots of LSD, lots of things that potentially are not okay now was happening here. But this is where the East meets the West. Okay, so in Gestalt therapy, they talk that you have to lose your mind, bit 70s, isn't it? Bit Sam Fran there. Lose your mind to come to your senses, and that all persons in society have lost connection with large parts of their bodies. Think of your trauma. It's not just trauma clients, it's our clients. I don't want to label people. We are all carrying trauma. We've all had choice removed from us. And it has occurred, this lack of connection is a way of suppressing intolerable conflict. And if we begin as therapists, as teachers, to reintroduce it into conscious awareness, it can be worked through in therapy. And actually, what Gestalt therapists believe, and I actually believe, right, is that the basis for dissolving the character armor that Reich talked about, the character armor, yeah, for dissolving it, is by bringing it into conscious awareness, okay, and perceiving it as a whole rather than just in pieces. So I'm going to show you a quick, and I'm only going to play this video. I'm sending you the longer video. Obviously, we don't have lots of time today, but I want to show you.
So I invite anyone who wants to come forth and work with me to take the hot seat. Your name is?
Don.
Don. I have only one request to make to you. To use the word now, if possible, with every sentence.
Like, now I feel my heart beating.
Yeah.
And now I wonder why I'm sitting here. Why did I wish to fill the void? Now I'm wondering, what is there to work with?
Yeah. Let me interrupt you here and switch back to Freud and his psychoanalysis. Freud said a person who's free from guilt feelings and anxiety is healthy. My own theory about anxiety and guilt are those. Guilt, as I hope to show in its context, is nothing but unexpressed resentment. And anxiety is nothing but the gap between the now and the later. As soon you leave the secure basis of the now and jump into the future, you experience anxiety, or in this case, stage fright. You get excited, the heart begins to race, and so on and so on, all the symptoms of stage fright. The fact that we very often don't notice our chronic anxiety is simply that we fill the gap of the now and later with insurance policies, rigid character formations, daydreams, and so on. If we reduce the later to the now, the anxiety is bound to collapse. So, let's do this now. Close your eyes and tell us in detail, what do you experience now?
Well, physically I feel the warmth of one hand and another. I feel, now I feel tension throughout my body.
Can you
especially up here.
Fine. Can you enter this tension?
It's as if I'm being stretched this way, across my shoulder.
Can you do this to me?
Oh.
Stretch me.
It's as if I'm being pulled out this way.
More. Do it as much as you need to do. Okay, sit down.
Something like that. Now it's gone away.
If you learn to do unto others what you're doing unto yourself, you stop repressing yourself and preventing yourself from what you've got to do. I don't understand yet his need to stretch me.
It's more about, it's useful to see somebody actually in practice and working. So to see Fritz work like that with a client. Of course, I'm sure we don't all have a cigarette and a coffee with the client and get them to come and pull our jumper. It's useful. But what we saw there was Fritz Perls bringing a sensation into the client's awareness, and then that coming really into conscious awareness. I've sent you that video, well, you'll get it later. And if you carry it on through, he works with that client. It's only about 13 minutes long. I'd encourage you, if you're interested with it, get a cup of coffee and watch it. It's very powerful. And in today's work, you know, how may this come about where we may notice? So I had a client just the other day online, and when she was talking, this was happening. And when I brought that into awareness, I'm noticing what's going on here, and there's silence, and she's just burnt out. She's been feeling suicidal. And then just to sit with the silence, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's all on me. And when we start to bring it as therapists, and this is the health warning, and also it's very fast. When we bring it, what is the it? When we bring it into awareness, it's very fast. So please be mindful of maybe how are you going to use this? And I'm sure many of you are doing it already, because you'll be noticing this in your clients. And actually, it was very powerful. We sat with this for maybe 5 minutes. It released emotion. She was crying. And then we worked on her breathing, and very much in the, so actually with that, it was about reversing this. Maybe putting the hand, actually, we can do this now together. Just place your hand on your upper chest and just gently begin to feel that, maybe some circles, or just feel the slow motion there of the breath. Can you connect your breath? Maybe take an inhalation and a longer exhalation. You may even like to invite the client or yourself to bring your hand onto your lower belly, just to notice the breath. You may want to direct the breath into the lower belly. Again, with trauma, clients can't breathe, so there can be shame around the lower belly. Okay, so just to notice the breath. And with this client in particular, we then worked on to reverse that spine, how we can do this. This is online as well. To breathe, actually join me now to breathe. And bring the hands back together. Do it again, breathe. And you may want to invite the client to squeeze the shoulder blades, raise the head, squeeze, breathe. And you may give this to the client to do for some homework if that's appropriate, or at least bring in the movement. This is Zoom. This is a client I have in the States, and it's how we can bring the movement in, noticing the shoulders. So when you've opened there, think of the tension in the shoulders. With a longer exhalation, inhale, exhale. And so Fritz really was bringing the work of Reich. So we're talking about breath, movement. In a therapy setting, it's bringing it into consciousness, but also in this space. This is the Esalen Institute. This is what they were getting up to. This is what you pay £2,000 a day for these hot baths. Brilliant. It's quite a special place to me. I know I went to go there. I actually was working in San Francisco. We drove down, I got to the gates, and something stopped me going in. And obviously that went down well with my boyfriend, because we just driven about 200 miles in the middle of nowhere. And I'll go back there at another time. But I'd encourage you, if you're interested in movement, the East, healing, therapy, go and jump in a bath of Esalen. Also, if you've ever watched Mad Men, a friend of mine is the script writer and a psychotherapist, and part of Mad Men is filmed here. If you know what I'm talking, if you've ever seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, I don't want to spoil it for you. So let's keep to the breath. So just checking with your own breath there, and how can you have a little move? And I'm going to invite you to just, how can you feel a bit more comfortable now? Have a little move, have a shake, check your breath. You might want to grab the dog or grab a cup of tea, whatever you need to do. Sit on the floor, whatever feels good for you right now. So the nervous system, okay. And again, very much with therapy, and we're on these calls and we're doing CPD, we have this information, and then how does that then translate into when we're working with the person in the room, or if we're teaching a group or the people? So I'm going to encourage you to reflect on how you're going to be able to verbalize this to your clients. This isn't special knowledge for us. It's really important that this information goes to as many people as possible. Okay, so just think about what you connect with. And I'm going to explain things really simply and how I work with clients as well. So I want to bring in Babette Rothschild here, fabulous lady. And again, let me grab the book. This book called The Body Remembers. Very important. So again, this is, Babette is shining a light on you. This is about you having a good income, not burning out, a long career. Okay, so it's about not burning out. And Babette very much talks about the ANS, the autonomic nervous system. So at the very least, for you, us, to become familiar with the autonomic division of the body's nervous system. It is a must for those who work with highly distressed and traumatized people. That is us, all of us, okay? So grasping the ANS, and if you're aware of it, we're going to do a refresh, will provide key tools for client containment and therapist self-care. So we're back to two bodies in the room here. Babette also very much, and I'm sending you this video that I'd like you to watch. We don't have time for it today. She talks about dual awareness. So how the client, how we can use the grounding, how we can feel steady. So right now, how can you feel steady where you are? Wiggle your feet. Can you feel the ground, the earth under your feet, in your heels, the spine lengthen? How can you feel steady? So we can notice our breath and be here now, rather than going back and being in the trenches, to work on this dual awareness. This is also something that's picked up in Van der Kolk's work. And it's also a very powerful thing that's been around for 5,000 years, which I did point out to the people who invented the trauma yoga, that you can't copyright this because this is in yoga for like 5,000 years, and it's interoception. You'll hear it a lot around the body work and polyvagal. So it's actually having awareness that if right now, if I dip my, if we all do this right now, if you just dip your chin to your chest, and you may notice a lengthening at the back of the neck.
Lorna, sorry, there was just a request if maybe you could go full screen when you do a little exercise, if that's okay.
Boom, what a great request. Right, so that we're gonna just drop our chin to our chest. Is that better, Zena?
Is that, just double check, Carl, is that what you meant? Yeah, okay, fab, yeah.
Cool, yeah, so just for the interoception, dropping our chin to our chest. And if you like, and when you're ready, bringing the chin up to one shoulder, and you may notice a lengthening at the side of the neck, and letting the chin come back down and going off to the other side. And again, just being curious. I'm going to invite you to continue with this slow movement. Just being curious and experiment with, does it feel different on one side to the other side? And slowly release. So interoception is where we are staying connected with what's going on in the here. We'll pick up on this later on. However, it's very important that we mention this when we talk about the autonomic nervous. And again, I can't highlight enough how important just the breath is. And with our trauma clients, a lot of them spend their whole life breathing here. Whole life that they're up here, okay? So the ability to self-regulate is critical to a sense of agency, healthy narcissism, and social confidence, the breath. So this includes a capacity for the body to find an equilibrium through expressive movement, reflexes, shaking, crying, laughing, and above all, unconsciously regulating the breath. And for me, especially with my clients who live on their own at the minute, I'm really seeing and have seen we're not able to sync up with each other or mirror neurons like we're doing here. We're consciously connecting when we're not able to be together, when we're not able to connect and breathe. Our nervous systems don't sync up. Okay, this is where the dogs and cats are very useful. Okay, so a recognition of these states and the capacity to support the transitions between, remember the higher energy? Think of the hyper-aroused clients, the anxiety, the fat. The sessions are gone like this. I've got a client who talks about sex just for 50 minutes. Poof, the session's gone like this. Anxiety, high energy. Or just notice how you feel with the depressed client, the lack of movement, that energy. Okay, so there's a transition. And this transition is at the heart, this noticing. So I want you now to just recall clients' energy. It's non-verbal as well. Just notice who or what is coming to you here. But actually, if we learn to regulate the breath, and really this is about relaxing, soothing, stimulating, curiosity, self-reflection. It's all healthy self-regulation. And without other people, self-regulation is very hard. So I'm really highlighting the COVID button there that concerns me a lot. So I'm going to just explain this to you very simply how I work with my clients, and I send them these slides that I'm going to be sending you. Feel free to edit them and share them with clients if you need to. So we don't need to go into the whole great and the good about the nervous system. I can do that to a bunch of students at the university who are doing biomed. Okay, what we need to focus on here is the autonomic nervous system, and it's split into two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So when individuals with poorly modulated ANS systems, or when we're thrown off balance, there's a lack of coherence between breathing and heart rate that makes people, think of your clients here, think of their breath or lack of breath, vulnerable to physical illness, mental problems, anxiety, depression, immune system, COVID immune system. Okay, so this is how I remember sympathetic energy. So the sympathetic nervous system is high. And why I have to do this visually, because I'm a visual learner as well. I'm dyslexic. So the word sympathetic sounds like sympathetic. Like it's actually the opposite, right? So it's being chased by the bull. It's the tiger. It's bloody COVID, right? So the collective unconscious is full of sympathetic energy, high energy, okay? And whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is the sleeping cat, the sleeping dog, it's low. Look, too much of this is too much lack of movement, depression, really cut off, numb, frozen. But there's this high energy, low energy. Remember, I'm saying that movement is energy, energy is movement, high and low. As yoga teachers, you'll notice this, and people who are not in a therapeutic environment, you will notice this in the energy of the room. Think about this. You will notice it, a person or a group will have this lower energy versus the higher anxious energy. Okay, so the lower side is where we need to connect with the parasympathetic, rest, digest, feed and breathe. So I actually think of when people are paralytic, drunk and on the side of the road, that's how I have to remember parasympathetic. That helps me. So we've got up, the bull and pampaloma, and then we've got having a rest. Okay, so how do we talk about this clinically? So for yoga teachers and therapists, and it's usually for people I encourage where I work with yoga teachers for this. Let's talk about the window of tolerance. Okay, so the window of tolerance, we're then able to frame this clinically rather than high energy, low energy. Okay, so the hyperarousal is the sympathetic fight-flight response. The amygdala, we are being flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, yeah, increased sensations, flashbacks, can't think. Think of the panic attack. I'm going to the hospital, I'm having a panic attack. Yeah, high. Then we have the window of tolerance. So anything that's going to just bring us down. So this is about social engagement. This social engagement helps us regulate. Again, think of COVID. People are isolated. I'm really seeing this in my own work with people. So this window of tolerance is a state where emotions can be tolerated and information integrated. So rather than the alarm bell in our brain, the amygdala going off, that basically the tiger's going to get me, the dinosaur's going to get me, COVID's going to get me, it is a fear response of the future. Just like Gestalt, Fritz Perls was saying that anxiety is based on something that hasn't happened yet. It's fear of something in the future. We can't think. When you're having a panic attack, when I have a panic attack, I don't even know my own name. Okay, so we cannot even think. Okay, window of tolerance. Then we've got the lower energy, the hypoarousal, relative absence of sensation, numbing of emotion. Think of your clients. I'm numb. Why they cut themselves, all right? Or what they may need to do to connect, to not feel numb. Yeah. Can't think again. Reduced movement. There's the reduced movement. Okay. And again, it's the not thinking. When we have social engagement, we start thinking at the front of our brains. This is the bit that goes, okay, I've got to pay the bills. I've got to pay the mortgage this month. I've got to go and buy some milk, or there's nothing for the tea. We're then able to think with movement. And I'm going to frame this with yoga first, right? So with yoga, and actually, I'll bring the breath in. So when we begin to inhale for 4, do this with me. I'm inviting you. Inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Longer exhalation. And again, inhale. Longer exhalation. When we do that, we impact our nervous system from being sympathetic, we come down. Okay, it brings us back into our window of tolerance. And again, many people, I think this is, we've got someone coming in here, Stephen's joining. A lot of our trauma clients spend their whole lives up here. But the reason why they may come back to class, why they come back to see you, is because for a flash of a moment, something feels different. It's about felt sense. That's why they come back. Otherwise, they wouldn't come back. So we're working with the window of tolerance. Okay. And again, the sympathetic nervous system, huge research, and I'm sending you a lot of this research later around effects on insomnia, stress, phobias, PTSD, trauma. Think of yourself now with what you're seeing with people when they're up here, right? When they're flooded with adrenaline, flooded with cortisol, okay? Depression, think of the lower end of the scale here. And this is something that I've found really a game changer for me in my work. And it's this 2 people in the room here. See you and your client, or you and your students in the room. A regulated nervous system can balance out other nervous systems naturally around it without having to do or fix anything. Think of that person that you know that you just be around. There may be someone from the past, and they're probably not therapists. And there's that person, might be from when you were little. You know, that person that makes you just feel safe. That's my word, safe. So the autonomic nervous system, it's not simply autonomous. It is regulated through our interaction with others. So as a therapist, we're always what's the next intervention? What have I learned here? What will I do next week? Come away from that. I'm going to encourage you just to sit back and breathe. Can you be with your client and just sit back and breathe? Because you being steady, you being in your window of tolerance is the work. A story I share is that a guy I worked with a few years ago, and he is a child therapist. He started crying when was in the training. It was quite powerful, and he shared it that he has a little boy, an 8-year-old boy, who came to therapy every week, and he felt that he wasn't doing anything. And I asked him what does happen in the session. He says they play Monopoly. And I said, and what does the little boy do? He went, he's the banker. This child is from it makes me cry, actually. It really impacts me every time I tell this story because it's so powerful. That this little boy was from such a traumatized, abusive household. He'd just been up here, and just for this hour a week, for this child to have this space, and that in itself was the work. So I'd encourage you to reflect on this, and actually it's maybe about often doing less to achieve more. How can you just be you, sit back and breathe, to look after yourself? Because how many clients do you have a day, or classes, or the people that you see? Where's your nervous system? If you have 5 clients a day, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's not good. Okay, it's burnout sort of trajectory. That how can we sit back and do less? Okay, so I'm going to just share this quick little video about the window of tolerance that hopefully you'll find useful. Again, please be mindful of
Clients who have experienced trauma often have difficulty regulating their emotions. So how can we help them learn how to self-regulate? Well, the first thing we need to think about is their window of tolerance, because if they're outside that window, it can be difficult for them to make progress in their sessions with us.
When I think about self-regulation, I really think about that optimum window of tolerance, right? That in a non-traumatized client with good self-regulation skills is really quite wide. So, they have a broad window of tolerance. And of course, you have to be in that window of tolerance to be able to think clearly, to have good relationships, to plan for the future. If you're outside that optimum window of tolerance, all those abilities, I think, are very much affected. And so when we think about our traumatized clients who have great difficulties with self-regulation, I always think of that optimum window of tolerance shrinking, right? So it's very narrow, and usually they're either too hyper-aroused or too hypo-aroused, which prevents them from thinking clearly, of being involved in stable relationships, prevents them from being really able to function at work, because they're constantly juggling either hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused states. So I think self-regulation is all about being in that optimum window of tolerance and widening that optimum window of tolerance through emotional awareness, through learning how to regulate your emotions, and through really coming into your body and feeling safe in your body.
That was Dr. Ruth Lanius. Ruth is a professor of psychiatry and the director of the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Research Unit at the University of Western Ontario. And she's just given us an excellent snapshot of the window of tolerance. That's a term from Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's an important concept when we're working with trauma and dysregulation. Now, expanding that window of tolerance is critical when we're helping clients learn to self-regulate. So what are some practical tools we can use to do this? Well, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk begins his work as soon as a client walks into his office.
When somebody walks in my office, I look at the way they walk in. I look at whether they're able to make eye contact. I look at their breathing. So one of the first things I do when I sit with people is I look at whether they actually are able to live within their rib cages. And I may spend the first hour with a new patient helping them to just open up their rib cage and to breathe. Because as long as the primitive part of your brain is all uptight, it's no use to do psychotherapy with them. So you start off with the most elementary arousal systems of the body. Every session I do that with everybody. When people are uptight, we may do Qigong exercises. Just imagine you have a ball between your hands. Open up your rib cage, calm yourself down. I may tap with people, tap acupressure points.
Now, how does tapping affect people? Well, here's what Bessel has found.
People become quieter. people get into the window of tolerance. People become more focused, alert, can actually talk about things. When people are uptight, I like to say, never leave home without a beach ball. People are uptight, you throw a beach ball back and forth. And when you get the rhythm going, you activate the most elementary synchrony part of your brain. So you calm yourself down and it becomes safe to start talking about stuff.